But what does everyone think about Ethereum? Thoughts? Yeah? Not sure? Well, next we have on Joe Lubin, and we're going to have Crystal Kim. She's a crypto reporter from Axios, and we have Joe Lubin, who is the CEO of Consensus and one of the co-founders of Ethereum. So what a delight to have them on this afternoon, and I can't wait to hear what they're talking about. It will be about what will drive the next supercycle. I don't know. Let's find out.
Hey, Denver.
Hello, everyone. I'm Crystal Kim. I write a daily newsletter called Axios Crypto. My ordinary mandate is smart brevity. It basically means that I have to be sharp and brief, in bits, basically.
I think we also have to be sharp and brief in this 20-minute session.
Well, yes, but for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to dig in because we have a
Sounds
pretty
good.
heady subject in front of us. But before we get there, I think I need to do some introductions, though I don't think you need one. This is Joe Lubin.
I'm Joe. I
yeah.
work at Consensus.
You all probably know him already because he's been here from the very start. And his company, Consensus, developed a lot of the products that y'all are probably using regularly. I think, this is my first ETHDenver. I'm a little bit of a noob. But I can't help but feel that my winter glooms are slipping off. I feel a little bit elated. And I know we're not going to talk about number go up, but I wanted to ask you, do you feel, a vibe shift here?
Oh, there's a buzz in the air at ETHDenver. It's pretty electric right now. Yeah. Absolutely. Wonder why.
Well, our panel subject...
I think we can maybe thank the SEC for the buzz,
Thank you, Gary.
for creating an inflection point for our ecosystem.
Okay. Now, without further ado, our panel subject is what is going to drive the next supercycle? And I think, set the scene for us, Joe. Big picture. What's going on?
So first, what's a supercycle? So there's this idea, and I like to think of it in two different ways. One, there's a generational supercycle. There's work done on generations theory by Strauss and Howe. Really valuable to read some of that or watch a podcast or something like that. And it essentially posits that there's about 80, 100 years 4 generations, and it repeats in a sense, and it rhymes to some degree. But the first generation is coming out of some sort of cataclysm, like the Second World War, and there's a new insight, a new way of doing things, a new system of the world, and really a new promise. And this first generation starts to build it out. Second generation accelerates it. Everybody does really well because there's tremendous growth. Third generation continues to do really well, but the shape of society has changed. The old system doesn't serve the current state of the world, and edge cases appear, cracks form, and things start to go sideways, and people start to take advantage of things. By the fourth generation, we're heading towards a brick wall, essentially. The wheels have fallen off the cart, and systems are breaking all over the place. And I think you out there might agree that we are in this fourth generation, this fourth turning, and we're ready for a new system of the world. The other way of thinking about this is that it's a monetary supercycle where the monetary systems of the world reach an end of life, essentially, basically because of interest, and there's too much debt in the system because certain generations broke the monetary system and other elements of the financial system.
in effect, we're talking about old things breaking and new things rising. One of the other sort of side events I was at, there was an audience member, a Q&A, more of an observation, but they were talking about how crypto was born into an era of free money. And his question was sort of in between the lines, now what? And I guess that's the question for you, Joe.
So crypto was born into an era of free money?
Yeah.
So I think it was born of an era of constrained money, controlled money, top-down command and control. Essentially, we for millennia have been living in a paradigm of centralized top-down trust, and its authorities imbue intermediaries with certain powers, and the intermediaries help run the world. They maintain these databases or ledgers that control who owns what and who has what rights and privileges. And then along came Satoshi, who was really reacting to this controlled monetary system and top-down command and control. Satoshi invented decentralized trust as opposed to centralized trust. We'd never seen decentralized trust on the planet before. And essentially that enables to build databases that are open for inspection, open for usage. We can add programs to those databases, and we can all inspect them and see what happened and when it happened. And the beauty of building money into these systems, decentralized money, is that there's incentivization for everybody to keep the system going, and it makes it also enormously expensive to overturn the history of the system. And so we have a new trust foundation upon which we can take a look at every system of the world, every different economic sector, and we can re-architect how it might work, essentially bottom up rather than controlled by intermediaries.
I want to get into some of the developments, recent ones that you're excited about. Before we get there, and I know we're at an Ethereum conference, but the Bitcoin
talk about
spotty.
Bitcoin, aren't you?
Yeah, I know. Sorry,
Okay,
sorry.
I've been enjoying talking about Bitcoin recently.
Okay, but so I was at an ETF conference, and it was all TradFi. That's sort of where I hail from. There was so much money in that room. But also, for the first time, I counted the word digital assets on 8 booths. That's up from just 1 last year. And the theme of the conference was business development. One thing I can tell you they weren't talking about is, the crumbling of the old guard. Guess why that might be? They are the old guard. I guess my question for you is, is that a good thing? Is spot Bitcoin ETF and the promise of possibly an ETH ETF good for the community?
So there are a lot of different issues in there. In the near term, I would say it's a great thing. The electricity in the air is significantly because we're on the other side of an inflection point where up until the launching of the Bitcoin ETFs, we have been struggling and doing better and better over the years, but really swimming upstream to try to insinuate decentralization into the real world. And the judicial system in the U.S. Essentially forced the hand of the SEC, and that enabled these giant bridges of value to open up and connect to giant pools of assets. And there's the floodgates are open, and there's an enormous amount of value now piling into the crypto ecosystem. So the good thing about that is that it's going to be hard for regulators and politicians to stomp on people's portfolios. And we're going to see more and more funding come into our ecosystem. It's been growing by the day into the ETFs, and it's really just started. It's not even on various different platforms. I think Merrill Lynch,
Morgan Stanley.
Wells Fargo, they've now included on the platform. So it's going to accelerate. And so there's this idea that there might be an Ethereum ETF as well. I thought the Bitcoin ETF was going to happen. I know the Ethereum ETF is going to happen. I do feel like the SEC is going to do what they can to drag their feet on this because Bitcoin in centralized financial instruments is good because it raises the value of the token, which raises all boats in our ecosystem. It's not so good because it's now in a centralized instrument.
Right.
There's things called the Plunge Protection Team or I forget, working group on financial markets, and there are ways of putting pressure on centralized companies to act in certain ways to move asset prices up or down as the government might want. So I think Bitcoin will be fine, but it is a lever for them to play. I think a lot of Ether will move into the Ether ETFs when they are approved, maybe this year, maybe in 2025. But it's really quite beautiful that if you have Ether, you can stake the Ether in the protocol, and that gives you the right to essentially perform labor for the protocol to validate transactions and ensure that the system is working. And with staking, with liquid staking, with liquid restaking, most of the Ether, I believe, will be drawn into these decentralized constructs rather than into a centralized financial instrument like an ETF.
Gotcha. So ultimately, I don't have to worry about like a massive supply of ETH just being stuck in an ETF.
Yeah, Ether, test. Ether is in the hands of some very passionate organizations and protocols and people. And so it will be very hard to attract a large percentage of Ether into these centralized financial institutions. They will have to raise the price quite significantly in order to get the amount of Ether that they need in those instruments. And that's probably going to be good for the ecosystem. I think we're going to have whiplash after whiplash over the next few years as our ecosystem accelerates.
All right. Okay, now we can talk about the industry landscape. What are some recent developments that you think have legs into 2024 and beyond?
So you're asking for examples of cool projects? I missed that.
Yeah. I've heard you talk about Celestia a bit, EigenDA.
Sure. So in broad strokes, we're at our broad moment where we've been working on usability and security, and we are about to hit scalability. And so we're going to be able to have lots of different kinds of applications that can cross the chasm into mainstream usage. These are going to be decentralized physical infrastructure. DeFi obviously is going to be huge. NFTs will be huge. For DePIN or DeFi physical infrastructure, there are projects in the automotive telematics space. Demo's one of our favorites. There's Wi-Fi. There's regenerative agriculture. My personal favorite is Fifth World. And so we're going to see basically people looking at the use cases in the world and figuring out how to decentralize them and deliver them through communities rather than a corporation which is generally in an adversarial relationship with their consumers. Gaming is going to be giant. A huge amount of money has been invested in gaming projects, blockchain-based gaming projects, and it takes a while, takes years in many cases to build a good game, and some of those are coming live soon. Immutable Network is a tremendous project that is essentially bringing game chains to layer 3 connected into an immutable polygon chain at layer 2. Social networking is going to transform. So I believe that we're on the precipice of seeing maybe the flippening isn't very near, but we're going to start establishing our own social graphs. On MetaMask, we have a Snaps plugin system, and there are some snaps that enable you to establish your decentralized identity and then use verifiable claims and credentials to link things and people up into social graphs and make attestations, building your social graph. And so we're moving into a world where either through MetaMask or other tools, you'll be able to establish and grow one or more social graphs for different purposes. These are going to be essentially social capital in a real capital sense of the word, where you're going to be able to monetize your own social graph. You might be able to lease it out, lend it out, join it to other social graphs for different purposes. And we're not going to be, our identities aren't going to be owned by the Facebooks of the world, but we're going to own our online presence, and applications will be coming to us, to our social graphs, to become resident on those social graphs, so that we'll be able to share applications, functionality, content.
All of that sounds very much in line with what we're talking about at large, the supercycle and new technological developments driving that.
Seems like a new way of doing things, a new system of the world, perhaps?
Very possibly. And I was just thinking about what we heard on stage just before us with Eric Voorhees. He painted quite a picture, the dystopian future.
Sounded a bit bleak, didn't it?
Yeah, I'm scared.
Yeah.
How do we get away from that? Do you have ideas?
So first, we should be vigilant and make sure that centralized AI isn't turned by well-resourced, nefarious actors into the most powerful tool for centralizing control on the planet. That is a legit concern. But I'm an idealist and a decentralizationalist, and I'm pretty confident that with projects that are already popping up in the space, and just what I think will be a more effective approach. Essentially, we have ways of doing decentralized compute, decentralized storage for different kinds of storage, decentralized bandwidth. So there's a DPIN project for that. Decentralized and perhaps decentralized sharing of training information. So I can share a lot of what I do as I'm walking through my day. I can do that in zero knowledge, perhaps, and so we can enable the sourcing of data, accessing of data from these giant data pools for different AI projects, cleaning up of data, and a lot of this stuff will benefit from the zero knowledge techniques that we have in our ecosystem, where you can do training and put something out in the world and enable people to use it without sort of giving up your intellectual property, perhaps, and still keep an open, decentralized system. So I believe that we're going to need AI as the world gets increasingly complex. None of us have read a full terms and conditions that we click through every day on the internet. And it's going to be difficult to understand these decentralized protocols. It's going to be difficult to understand how to participate effectively in DAOs, in governance. And so it will be very nice, and it's coming soon, for us to have AI allies, AI agents built into our phones, our laptops, our wallets, maybe into our brains, chips somewhere near our brains potentially. But it will be really valuable for us to have a bunch of different intelligences that we can access and that we can delegate some responsibilities to. We'll have to trust these things, of course, and so they're going to have to be decentralized. And so I do think that there's going to be just an explosion of activity in the AI plus crypto space because it is absolutely necessary to marry AI and decentralization. It'll serve us better, and the alternative is pretty disturbing.
All right, well, we only have a few more seconds left on stage, but I'm not going to let you leave until 2 more questions, I swear. But they're important. First is elections. The second one is about jobs. Elections because we have a Kennedy coming to talk at ETHDenver.
I'm pretty excited about that.
A huge paradigm shift,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I guess my question is, can crypto thrive in the U.S. under the Biden administration?
Well, I may avoid the politics of that question to some degree. I think the momentum is picking up, and it's unstoppable. The SEC has done some things under the Biden administration, has done some things that are real head scratchers. That there's an element of gaslighting, an element of unreasonableness in some of the actions they've brought. And the judicial branch has been wonderful in seeing things clearly and making sure that the laws of the United States of America and the Constitution are followed and protected. I do think that there are elements in the Biden administration that are starting to see crypto and decentralization a little more clearly. In Treasury and DOJ, they have explicitly recognized the value in terms of money transmission and fighting crime. And that said, I look forward to a more decentralized approach to governance in the United States.
I think that's actually where we need to end because we're getting pulled off stage. But on the jobs front, I guess I wanted to say is I've been hearing a lot of positive developments. Just someone I spoke to today said they were looking to hire 20 people.
Yeah.
20 people. And I know for a fact that you've also said that you see expansion coming per the Supercycle. So can we give our very optimistic Joe Lubin, idealist Joe Lubin, a big round of applause for the big picture?
Wow, was that incredible?